Can you tell me a little bit about how this kind of project all came together, kind of what your inspirations were? I know you're obviously the screenwriter, and I've seen you talk about how some of it was kind of based on some real life stuff. How personal of a project was Thelma for you?
It was a very personal project. It was, yeah, inspired by a real life scam that happened to my grandma. That's pretty similar to the one that's in the movie. And in real life, luckily, she didn't actually end up sending the money. We were able to kind of intervene at the last minute, which was a great relief. But that whole incident and seeing my grandma kind of duped in that way, especially as someone who's always been so unflappable and sturdy and kind of, just kind of unshakable, I think kind of stuck in my head and got me thinking. And I started imagining, what might have happened if she had sent it and set out to get it back. And that became kind of the inspiration for telling this story and for the lens through which I sort of ended up, writing what is essentially an ode to her spirit and her tenacity and her character as someone I've always just really admired and loved and been really close to my whole life. So it is definitely based on a real person, based on the sort of a real incident, and then kind of imagined from there as a vehicle to kind of explore these ideas of autonomy and aging and anxiety and the things that were kind of on my mind as I was watching her go through, that particular moment in her life and reckon with that new chapter.
Sure. No, definitely. And you said it perfectly. What I love about the movie is it's such a scary incident kind of happening, being scammed like that. But then you find so much humor in it. You find so much like heart and depth to it. I thought just the way you combined all that was so cool and so made it so fun to watch. It should be the happiest movie in the world, but I was having a great time watching it.
No, I'm so glad. I appreciate that. I wanted it to have some, some catharsis and fun and kind of, be of a piece with how I experienced, spending time with my grandma, who is kind of all of those things. Like there's heaviness, there's real, grief and stakes to this moment in her life and sort of the things she's lost and the things she's facing. But she's also always still so funny and full of life and verve and like just, an incredibly kind of, like alive person, even when she is in moments where she is sort of, diminished or struggling. So the movie to me, I just wanted to be able to carry all those different little facets. And that's kind of what excited me about writing it and trying to capture her in that way.
Sure. No, and I think you do it great too. And on top of the writing, you're also stepping into the chair as director. First big feature film like that. How was that experience? Was it terrifying?
It was a little bit of both. It was fun. It was scary. It was, exciting. It was, in a way, I feel lucky to have, it's my first time directing a feature, but coming up as a writer and an editor and an actor, I feel like I've gotten to wear so many of the hats sort of surrounding that role that in some ways it felt like a big change. And in other ways, it felt like such a kind of familiar extension of what I had already been doing. So no matter what, you're going to feel that pressure and you're going to feel a little bit of the fake it till you make it nature of like, okay, I hope everybody gets on this train with me and believes in where we're headed. But it was nice to have a little bit of that muscle memory, I think, so that I wasn't kind of going in completely blind. But even with that, you're still new challenges arise every day, and you surround yourself with a team of people who have done it more times than you have. And that feels like an important part of the process is just having a really, really strong and trusted team of collaborators with you.
Sure. I'm sure. I'm dying to talk to you about June Squibb in this movie too, because she looks like she's having the absolute time of her life being able to film some of the scenes in here. What was it kind of like working with her, and what kind of like vibe did she bring to the set?
She was great. She really was like kind of everything you'd hope she'd be in more. She is such a consummate pro, like just so on it in a way that kind of forces everybody around her to up their game, myself included, which was really nice to have in a way, because you kind of have someone at the center of the project who is just like setting the bar really high as an actor, as a collaborator, as a person. She was just, she's so fun to work with. She's so cool. She's so matter of fact and smart and to the point, and just someone who can kind of cut through BS in a really effective way, both on screen, I think, and, even just as a person. just sort of, you know, inspires a certain honesty and a certain frankness, because she's so, you know, sort of open in that way and to the point about things, which I find really, you know, refreshing, kind of like a good gravitational home base for the movie. But she was really wonderful, and she was just like, she never dropped a line, which is crazy kind of for an actor of any age. She really just like was so disciplined and gave so much to the movie, and it was really, really inspiring to see, and just a fun person to collaborate with, because she was just, yeah, a great energy on set.
Yeah, she seems like it. You can tell
Yes.
she's all kinds of fun in this movie too.
She was having fun. She loved driving that scooter. Anytime she got a chance to be on the scooter, she was, I think, at her happiest.
Yeah. I was going to kind of ask you about that too, because in the months and weeks leading up to this movie's release, I remember seeing headlines about how June Squibb wanted to do all her own stunts in the movie and that kind of thing. And I thought it was so funny how you kind of counted that with all the Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible stuff. I thought that was a hoot. I was just wondering, was there ever like a moment when June Squibb was like, this is something I really want to do, this kind of stuff in the movie, and you had to just be like, let's look at this a little closer?
It's a good question. I think there were probably a handful. I think she was pretty game for anything, which was amazing. And she did a lot more than we thought she was going to do. We had a great stunt team. Our coordinator, Ryan Sturs, and her double, Heidi Pasco, were like very, very involved, even when she was performing the stunts and they were kind of coaching her through. So that was fortunate to have a great gang around her. But I'm trying to think if there was one in particular that she wanted to do where we were like, I think, you know, she didn't. There's a little part where like the scooter lifts up, one of the wheels lifts up when she's kind of veering around a corner. That was not her, fortunately. But I'm trying to remember if she was trying to make a play for that one or not. I think the deep ball was definitely like June wants to try. Yeah. And I think I think that was definitely at least one of the times when we were like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but still, the scooter is just so much fun. I was jealous.
It was fun. I will tell you, I sometimes would drive it around in between takes just when I was trying to think or brainstorm. It was a great thing to have, to be like, okay, I'm going to do a lap around the block. I'll be back.
Yep. That would have totally been me too. I gotta ask you about Richard Roundtree in this movie too, because another great fun presence. Obviously, when you were working on the movie, you didn't know it was going to end up being his final performance like this. But what's it kind of like watching it now, like seeing him in here? Is it surreal at all? I mean, he's so good in it.
Oh yeah, he was just really, really, he's wonderful, a wonderful actor and a really lovely guy. And I think, yeah, I feel really lucky that we got to work with him and spend time with him. And I think, you know, watching it now, I think it just all has a little more weight, I think, in some way with him. Like, you know, he already is bringing so much, I think, pathos and heart and vulnerability to that part. And especially to those scenes where he kind of opens up and gets to talk about his, you know, his experience with his wife and aging and all of that. So I think all of that just feels, you know, it already had kind of a melancholiness to it, but I think it just feels all the more, sad in some ways than it did, just knowing that this ended up being his last role, and knowing that I think on some level he was, you know, we didn't know he was sick, and or maybe, and I don't even know if he knew he was sick at the time, or if he even was, or if it all kind of came after the fact. But I do think I feel like there was some awareness in him, just in where he was in his life, that he was kind of, you know, facing this new chapter in some way. And I think that was something he already kind of brought into the character and into the movie. And I think it's just even more kind of poignant and vulnerable now that we know where he was at in his journey, you know, despite what we may have known then. So it was, you know, it was always really affecting to watch his performance. And I think now just even more so.
Sure. And like you said, it's sad, but I also love that it's not like a downer movie. Like,
yeah,
having so much fun too. It's a celebration of life. It feels like I love the approach to it. And
he was having a lot. Yeah, I think he had a great time. He and June also got along really well, which was lucky. Like they had a good time together, and I think had a lot of mutual respect. And so yeah, Richard was so fun to have on set. He was just a sweet, like warm-hearted, funny, kind guy that everybody liked hanging out with. He had a cigar tent, which was also fun. He would smoke the cigars on set in his tent, and then he'd come out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was very cool. We were like, we got to get Richard his tent, and so we got him set up.
No, definitely. That's awesome. So another thing I love about Thelma is there are these big laugh out loud moments the whole way through. It's so funny and charming, but they're also, like, kind of like you said before, has a whole lot of heart to it. I think one of my favorite scenes is when June Squibb is alone at night and she falls down, and then you see Richard Roundtree kind of come and pick her up, and I thought that was just really touching. I know you edited the film as well, so I was just kind of curious, what was it like trying to balance the comedy and the emotion and the heart? Was it kind of hard to find the sweet spot when you're hitting all three perfectly? Or
well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. That was always I think that was always the challenge of the movie, and kind of the thing that excited me about it, but also the thing that scared me about it was trying to make sure that these, the comedy, the kind of human drama of it, and also kind of the genre elements all felt like just of a piece, and like they were all motivated by character and by something organic. So it was a lot of, I think, sanding down over the course of the process, but be it script, on set, and especially in post, like you were saying in the edit, it was always about like kind of the ratios and being like, how long are we spending in this kind of feeling versus how long are we spending in this one? And like, how long can we afford to dip into here before we kind of have to find our way back out? Or it was interesting to see, like, as the movie got tighter and as the edit got shorter, things started to feel like they were affecting each other more. Like, when there was sort of a little more time in between, sometimes, point A and point B started to feel distant in a way where like whatever energy you're getting from over here didn't feel like it was like kind of pushing us all the way to over here. And as things got tighter and closer together, I found that helped. That and the score, I think, did a lot in terms of just making sure it felt like everything was of a piece, and that each moment was sort of, motivating the next. And if the next was whatever the flavor of that next moment was, I think if the movie was working, when the movie was working, it felt like it was when those moments were all kind of feeding each other. And I think finding the shape definitely took some trial and error, and, sanding down and cutting something, putting it back, cutting something else. It was a process of little adjustments over the course of a while, which I think got us to where it landed. But yeah, to your point, that was definitely always top of mind and something we were always trying to balance and be very aware of.
Yeah, I'm sure that took a lot of work. It doesn't sound easy, but
it was, that was definitely a process.
Yeah. Kind of on the same note, I kind of wanted to talk to you and ask you about the grandson character too, played by Fred Hechinger, because I thought he was great. I mean, kind of the whole, what we're talking about balances the heart and the humor. When you first see him, you think of all these cliches. He's just going to be the grandson who kind of doesn't have a job, just out here making jokes. But then the more movie goes on, you can see how much like love and affection he has for his grandma, how much he kind of really cares about everything and what's going on in life. So I was just kind of wondering how you kind of went about building that character. I thought he was really great.
Oh, I'm glad. Fred's a fantastic actor who really just brings so much to like everything he does. He's so funny, but also natural, and has a lot of depth and intelligence and just like great instincts. And he's just a really, really a great guy and a great actor. So I was lucky to have Fred. And actually, it's funny. We did rewrite the movie for Fred. Basically, that role was originally like around 30 something, like at a kind of different transitional moment of some burnout and trying to figure out kind of what's next. And when we saw Fred in White Lotus, we were like, well, he's so perfect for this. And I just felt like a kindredness with him watching him. It was like, I relate to him. Like, I think he's so good. And I feel like he'd be perfect for the role. And luckily he said yes. But what was nice with that character was it was sort of a way to express and sort of dramatize a lot of the feelings and frustrations and anxieties that, I had growing up and had specifically in relation to like my grandma getting older and facing this new moment in life, and someone who I'd always been so close to suddenly kind of seeming slightly less invincible than they did. And that kind of shaking up my conception of, of just what the journey of her life and my life might be. Because I think in some way, even though obviously we're all mortal, I was like, my grandma she just is, nothing can kind of, she's so solid, like nothing can throw her off in that way. And then watching her kind of come up against the inevitable, trials and tribulations of age, kind of kicked off also by this incident, definitely set off my own, fears about my own life and my own ability to kind of find my way through things. So that character became a way for me to kind of write to those, genuine anxieties and fears of my own, and kind of, express them and hope that they can kind of mirror hers in some ways, and you know, those characters can kind of be mirror images of each other at very different moments in life, but similarly important kind of transitional moments.
Yeah, no, sure. I love that. That's awesome. I remember kind of first hearing about Thelma, would it be January, I think, when it was playing at Sundance.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of when I first like started seeing articles and hearing all this buzz about it. And I know it got all kinds of these positive reviews when it was coming out of there. Do you remember kind of what your reaction was like when you screened Thelma for the first time and suddenly everyone's just loving it?
It's funny. It was a roller coaster, because I was like, we had done a lot of test screenings, or, you know, like test screenings for friends and friends of friends, and, you know, sort of extended pals and stuff. And so I feel like in some ways we'd shown it to a lot of people. And so I was like, oh, we've showed it to people before. Like, we've been getting good feedback and smart notes and da, da, da. And then something about when we were actually at Sundance and we were screening it, I think it hit me like halfway through, where I was like, oh God, like, oh no, like people are gonna see it. Like, I hope people like it. And so it was this funny roller coaster where like I was so in it that I was like, I don't know how it's going. I can't tell. I'm just like, all I'm hearing is like, is the volume too low? Is it too high? Is this playing? Is this right? And then I would say the night of, as you know, reviews start coming out, you like start reading some, you're like, oh, I think, okay, it sounds like they're kind of liking it. Like, did they like it? This guy was, you know, this guy liked it. This guy was mixed. This person really was into it. So you start to get a picture. And then I think not until, quite honestly, a few days after, when I could sort of see with a little bit more clarity that like, oh, people are liking the movie. That's great. That's a huge relief. Did it kind of hit me like, wow, that's so cool. I think the night and day of was just so, there was so much happening all the time that I was just kind of on the roller coaster of like, wait, where is the floor here? Like, what's our baseline? And then once I was able to kind of see the dust settle a little bit and go like, oh, wow, I think this actually went well. That's so exciting. I was able to kind of process that, I think, in the following days.
Yeah.
So day one was just, you know, along for the ride, kind of the roller coaster of emotion of it all. And then as you know, things kind of settled in, I was like, oh, cool. Thank God. I'm really happy people were liking it.
I'm sure that's a good feeling when that does finally sit.
Yes, it was a really, really nice feeling. I was very, very, you know, grateful that it was connecting with people.
Sure, definitely. What I think about is so cool about it too, and I'm sure you didn't know this when you were working on it, and probably not even at Sundance, but the movie came out in June, releasing it in theaters in June. Kind of, I just think it's awesome how there's an action movie with a 94-year-old woman in theaters at the same time as all like this giant blockbuster superhero stuff. I think it's so cool how that all kind of worked out, kind of different counter programming, but also just an experience unlike anything you can have at the movies during the summer. I think that's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. I was so excited about that too. Magnolia was so smart about how they released it, and like, you know, treating it kind of like a summer tentpole on a smaller scale, obviously, but giving it that same placement and treating it like, yeah, it's a summer action movie, and it has, you know, these other things going on, and it's this twist on that idea. But they were really, you know, bullish about just taking a shot with the movie theatrically, and I'm so glad they did, because it was, you know, it was just they really went to bat for us, and I think it was such a smart moment to put the movie out. So I'm so glad that you experienced it that way, because that was the hope, that it would feel like kind of the counter programming, but, you know, be this summer movie that people could be like, oh, there's this action movie with June Squibb who was a lead in 93,
and it works, and it totally works. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Just got one more question here for you, Josh. But now you got Thelma. It's been in theaters. It's coming out on physical media now. Do you have any plans for anything after this as far as directing goes, or are you taking some time and taking this all in?
A little bit of both, but I'm writing a new movie. I'm sort of, you know, in the midst of drafting that. So I'm in process. I'm back in the writing phase again, which has been, you know, fun to start kind of digging up something new. So hopefully more on that soon. But right now, yeah, exactly. I'm kind of back in the writing phase and trying to write this other movie that I would love to direct. So I'm, you know, hopefully that'll start coming together in the next little bit.
Sure. Well, I now can't wait to see it.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited to share it with you.